All right, buckle up for a deep dive. And fair warning, this one might get a little spicy.
Ooh, intriguing.
Yeah, today we're looking at a single source, a really in-depth guide all about, well,
Maximizing pleasure during oral sex.
exactly, that's the one. Now, before anyone gets too flustered, remember we're all about pulling out those fascinating nuggets of insight.
Any source, no matter how unexpected.
You got it. And this guide, I gotta say, it's surprisingly methodical.
It really is. You'd think this would be all instinct, but no.
Like they've broken down an art form into a science.
That's a great way to put it.
Hmm.
I was honestly impressed by the level of detail, even anatomical references.
Oh yeah, you can tell they really wanted to create a thorough and informed approach, which brings us to the big idea.
The start-stop method.
Right. Yeah, that's the one.
You know, at first glance, it seems counterintuitive.
It does. Why stop when things are getting good?
Well, that's where the psychology of arousal gets really, really interesting.
Okay, I'm listening.
The guide argues that these intentional pauses, these moments when sensation is peaking, they actually amplify the whole experience.
So it's like pulling back a slingshot.
Exactly. The further you pull back, the more powerful the launch.
So building anticipation, creating that slow burn.
Precisely. Instead of rushing towards the main event.
Most people probably do, right?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
The guide really emphasizes a gradual escalation.
Makes sense.
And they get so specific. Teasing techniques, varying pressure, focusing on often neglected areas.
It's a whole roadmap to creating a really intense layered experience.
I was particularly impressed with how they emphasized understanding and responding to your partner's subtle cues.
Makes total sense. You can't create a fulfilling experience without being in tune with your partner, right?
Right. It's not just about technique, it's about communication.
And being truly present in the moment with your partner.
Which, speaking of being attentive, the guide also suggests incorporating your hands, not just your mouth.
Oh, that's right. It's about bringing in the hands for added stimulation.
Always, always with clear communication and consent, of course.
Of course, everything comes back to responsiveness, making sure both partners are comfortable and enjoying the experience.
Yeah, absolutely could agree more.
One thing I really appreciated was how the guide even goes into post-intimacy care and communication.
Yeah, they emphasize extending intimacy beyond the physical, don't they?
Right. It's not just about the physical act itself, it's about the emotional connection that lingers afterwards.
Even small gestures like cuddling or expressing appreciation
Or even just holding your partner can really deepen the connection.
and make the experience so much more meaningful.
It seems like this guide is advocating for a really holistic approach to intimacy.
It is combining physical techniques with emotional intelligence and attentiveness.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
You know, it's not just about achieving orgasm.
Right.
It's about crafting an experience that's both pleasurable and memorable for everyone involved.
And a big part of that is being in tune with your partner's wants and needs.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
I love how they got into sensory play, flavored lubricants, exploring different positions.
Oh, yeah. It's all about keeping things fresh and exciting, isn't it?
Exactly. They really stress continuous growth.
Learning from every experience, adapting to individual preferences.
It's about keeping that spark alive and never letting things get stale.
You know, that emphasis on communication and being present is really striking.
It is.
It's like they're encouraging a level of vulnerability and openness
Right.
that could be transformative, and not just in the bedroom.
You're so right. It could spill over into every area of a relationship.
I was fascinated by their section on teasing techniques.
Oh yeah, me too.
Using your breath, feather-like touches, even just whispered words.
Designed to make every touch electric. Build that anticipation.
It's interesting how these techniques, even though presented in a specific context, could apply to intimacy more broadly.
Absolutely. It's about being mindful, attentive, and communicative.
Those are valuable skills anywhere, wouldn't you say?
100%. And it's not just about following instructions.
Right.
It's about using this guide as a springboard for exploration.
To experiment and discover what truly works for you and your partner.
Exactly.
One thing that stood out to me was the idea of synchronizing energy with your partner.
Oh yeah. That's not something you hear every day, is it?
I'd never really considered it before, honestly.
Well, it's about being attuned to those physical and emotional cues. Like if your partner's moving their hips to meet yours, you match their rhythm.
I see.
Or if you notice their breathing getting erratic, you slow down.
To savor the sensations.
Right. It's about moving together, creating a shared experience, a dance of sorts.
That's beautiful. So it's not just physical, it's emotional synchronicity too.
It's like you're reading each other's minds and bodies to create something truly special.
Now, the guide kept coming back to the importance of those moments after intimacy.
Didn't they?
Yeah, like it's not just about the act itself, it's
Right.
about solidifying the connection afterwards.
Exactly.
So what did they suggest for aftercare?
Well, it's all about those simple but powerful gestures,
Yeah.
like holding your partner close, stroking their hair, whispering words of affirmation.
Just letting them know you're still there, present and caring, even after the heat of the moment fades.
Exactly. It reinforces that intimacy isn't just about the physical act, but about the emotional connection that goes beyond the bedroom.
This is really making me rethink my whole approach to intimacy.
Me too. It really is.
It's so much more nuanced and layered than I ever realized.
That's the beauty of it, isn't it? It's not about following a strict set of rules.
Right.
It's about exploring, experimenting, finding what works best for you and your partner.
Speaking of exploration, I remember they also talked about bringing in some creative elements.
Yes. Like sensory play using a feather or an ice cube to tease.
Oh, I see.
They even mentioned flavored lubricants and experimenting with different positions.
It's about keeping things fresh and exciting, pushing those boundaries a bit.
Exactly. The guide is all about continuous growth and learning from every experience.
It's a journey of discovery, both individually and as a couple.
I love that.
You know, one thing that really stood out to me was their advice on building confidence through practice.
Oh, that's so important.
Because I imagine a lot of people might feel intimidated or unsure of themselves when it comes to this, you know?
Totally understandable. But the guide stresses that it's not about being perfect.
It's about being present, attentive, and eager to please.
Yes. And as you practice and refine your skills, the more confident you become.
And that confidence makes you a more attractive and desirable partner.
Exactly. It's a positive feedback loop.
Confidence breeds more confidence.
And the guide really encourages us to embrace the art of teasing.
The art of teasing, okay.
It's not just about the main event. It's about those moments leading up to it.
Building anticipation, heightening sensitivity.
Like building suspense in a thriller.
Okay, so what kind of teasing techniques are we talking about?
Well, for example, they talk about using your breath.
Your breath.
Yeah, like hovering your mouth just above the clitoris to let your partner feel the warmth without direct contact.
Interesting.
They also suggest feather-light touches, grazing the clitoris with your tongue or lips before pulling away.
Okay.
And even verbal teasing, like whispering something provocative in their ear,
Oh, I see.
can be incredibly effective at keeping your partner engaged and wanting more.
It's about playing with all the senses, creating that anticipation.
Exactly. To make every touch feel electric.
It's fascinating how this guide, even though it's about this specific aspect of intimacy,
Right.
actually offers insights that apply to relationships more broadly.
100%. The themes of communication, vulnerability, being present,
Striving to grow and learn together.
these are all essential for any healthy and fulfilling relationship.
It's like the guide is encouraging us to approach intimacy with curiosity and playfulness.
And willingness to step outside our comfort zones.
And to remember that intimacy is a journey, not a destination.
Exactly. It's about celebrating every moment, every touch, every sensation.
Connecting with our partners on a deep and meaningful level.
Creating experiences that are both pleasurable and fulfilling.
I love that perspective.
It takes the pressure off, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And it allows us to just enjoy the process.
And speaking of the process, the guide emphasizes learning from each experience, reflecting on what worked, what didn't, and how you can improve for next time.
So it's about continuous growth, both as individuals and as a couple.
Always learning, always evolving.
This level of open and honest communication can be truly transformative in any relationship.
Oh, without a doubt. And it reminds us that intimacy is a two-way street.
Meaning,
It's not just about pleasing your partner, it's about finding a shared experience that's mutually satisfying.
that's fulfilling for both of you.
Yes,
This deep dive is really giving me a lot to think about.
me too. It's a reminder that intimacy goes far beyond just the physical.
Right.
It's about connection, trust, and being open and vulnerable with another human being.
Which can enrich our lives in countless ways.
Exactly. This guide really offers some universal truths about human connection and the power of intimacy.
It does, and it reminds us that this journey of exploration and discovery, it's ongoing.
Always something new to learn, new to try, new to experience.
I love that. Staying curious, open-minded, and always seeking to deepen our connection.
With ourselves and our partners.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
This deep dive into the art of oral pleasure has given us a lot to think about.
It really has.
What stands out to you as the most important takeaway?
For me, it's that emphasis on mindfulness, communication, and emotional connection.
Right. The guide makes it clear that these can transform a physical act into something truly intimate and fulfilling.
Exactly. It's about being present, responsive, creating a space where both partners feel safe, heard, and deeply connected.
And what's so powerful is that this approach, it applies to all forms of intimacy.
Doesn't it? Not just the specific techniques they outline.
That's such an important point. So even though we've been talking about a certain type of intimate experience,
The underlying principles are much broader.
exactly, whether it's physical touch, emotional vulnerability, or just spending quality time together.
The key is to approach intimacy with intention, mindfulness, and a desire to connect with your partner.
It's incredible how this deep dive took us on such an unexpected journey.
It is, isn't it?
We started with a guide on a specific technique and ended up exploring the very essence of human connection.
It's fascinating how that happens.
It just goes to show there's always something new to learn, to discover, and to appreciate.
About the complexities of human intimacy.
Well said. So, for our listeners, what's one key takeaway you'd like them to ponder?
I'd say this. Remember that intimacy thrives on mindfulness, communication, and a willingness to be vulnerable.
Oh, I like that.
Whether you're exploring new techniques or just deepening your existing connection,
Right?
approach intimacy with curiosity, respect, and a genuine desire to connect with your partner on a soul level.
Beautifully put. And I'd add that the journey of intimacy, it's an ongoing one. It's about continuous growth, learning from each experience, and embracing the beauty of connection in all its forms.
Absolutely.
So stay curious, stay open-minded, and never stop exploring the incredible depths of human intimacy.
Couldn't have said it better myself. You know, it's like they're saying, hey, even after all the fireworks have gone off, those embers are still glowing.
Mm-hmm.
Tend to them.
Oh, absolutely. Nurturing that deeper connection, even after the...
The physical climax.
Exactly. So what did they actually suggest? I'm curious.
Well, they talk a lot about the power of those simple gestures.
Like what?
Things like holding your partner close, stroking their hair, whisper words of affirmation.
Little things.
Little acts of tenderness, but they can speak volumes.
You know, sometimes it really is those small, almost insignificant things that have the biggest impact, you know?
Right. It's like saying, hey, I'm still here, present with you, caring, even after the heat of the moment.
Exactly. It really reinforces the idea that intimacy isn't just about that physical act, but about a connection that goes beyond that.
An emotional connection that lingers, that goes beyond the bedroom.
This guide is giving me a whole new perspective on intimacy. It's so much more multifaceted than I realized.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's so much depth. It's not about some rigid set of rules.
Right.
It's about exploration. It's about experimentation. It's about finding what truly works for you and your partner.
Finding that spark.
Yes.
Yeah.
And speaking of sparks, I remember they encourage being creative.
Oh yeah, spicing things up.
Exactly. They suggest incorporating sensory play,
Okay.
like using a feather or an ice cube to tease, to tantalize. They even mention flavored lubricants,
Okay.
experimenting with different positions.
So many possibilities.
It's about pushing boundaries, trying new things, keeping things exciting.
And never being afraid to experiment.
Never. That's what keeps things fresh. That's what keeps that spark alive. You
It's
know?
all about continuous growth, learning, adapting.
Yes. Yes. And speaking of growth, you know, one thing that stood out to me was their advice on building confidence through practice.
Oh yeah, that's so important.
I feel like so many people get intimidated or unsure of themselves.
Yeah, especially when it comes to this aspect of intimacy, it can be really vulnerable.
Of course. But the guide makes a point of saying it's not about being perfect.
Okay.
It's about being present, being attentive, and really genuinely wanting to please your partner.
And the more you practice, the more confident you'll become.
Exactly. Becomes a cycle, you get better, more confident, and that makes you a more attractive and desirable partner.
It's a positive feedback loop.
Confidence breeds confidence.
And the guide encourages us to embrace, wait, what was the phrase?
The art of teasing.
Right, the art of teasing.
Remember, it's not just about the main event. It's about those moments leading up to it.
The build of...
Building that anticipation, making every sensation so much more heightened, you know.
Like creating the suspense in a good thriller. I like that.
Exactly. So what kind of teasing techniques were they suggesting?
Well, they talk about using your breath,
Oh, like how?
like hovering your mouth right above the clitoris so they feel the warmth, but without direct contact.
Interesting.
They also suggest feather-light touches, grazing the clitoris with your tongue or lips, and then pulling away.
Ooh, playful.
And even just whispering something provocative in their ear.
Oh yeah, a little verbal tease.
Just something to keep them on edge, wanting more.
It's amazing how they use all the senses, you know. Creating that heightened anticipation makes each touch feel electric.
It's like they've taken edging and made it into an art form.
They really have.
Yeah.
And they really emphasize taking your time, savoring every moment, and building toward an explosive climax.
It's about the journey, not the destination.
Exactly.
You know, it's remarkable how this guide, even though it's focused on a specific aspect of intimacy,
Yeah.
it gives you insights you can apply to relationships more broadly.
I was thinking the same thing. It all comes back to communication, vulnerability, being present, striving to grow and learn together.
Those are the foundations.
Those are essential ingredients for any healthy, fulfilling relationship.
No matter what we're talking about.
Exactly. And the guide encourages us to approach intimacy with this sense of curiosity, playfulness.
A willingness to step outside those comfort zones.
Yes. And to remember, intimacy is a journey.
It's not a destination.
It's about celebrating every moment, every touch, every sensation.
Connecting on a deeper level.
Creating those experiences that are both pleasurable and fulfilling.
I love that. It takes the pressure off, you know?
Right.
And it lets us just enjoy the process.
Enjoy the journey. Speaking of which, the guide emphasizes learning from every experience.
Learning from experience, okay.
It's about taking time to reflect on what worked, what didn't, and how you can make things even better next time.
So it's about continuous growth, always evolving, always seeking to deepen those intimate connections.
Exactly. Individually and as a couple. It's about being open to feedback, trying new approaches, and never being afraid to ask for what you want.
Being open and honest, that kind of communication, it's transformative in any relationship.
Oh, absolutely. It reminds us that intimacy is a two-way street.
A two-way street, meaning?
It's not just about you pleasing your partner. It's about finding a shared experience that's mutually satisfying and fulfilling for both of you.
This deep dive has really given me a lot to think about.
Me too.
It really highlights how these principles of mindfulness, communication, vulnerability, they apply to so many different parts of life.
It's a reminder that intimacy, it's not just about the physical act.
Right.
It's about connection. It's about trust. It's about being open and vulnerable with another person. And those qualities.
Those are the things that enrich our lives in countless ways.
This guide, even though it's presented in a specific context, it really offers some universal truths about human connection and the power of intimacy.
I agree.
And it reminds us that the journey of exploration and discovery, it's ongoing.
It never ends.
There's always something new to learn, something new to try, something new to experience.
It's about staying curious, staying open-minded, always seeking to deepen our connections.
With ourselves and with our partners.
You've put it beautifully.
It's about embracing the beauty and the power of intimacy in all its forms.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have. This deep dive into the art of oral pleasure, it's given us a lot to think about.
What stands out to you as the most important takeaway?
For me, it's that emphasis on mindfulness, communication, and emotional connection.
Creating that space where both partners feel safe, heard, and connected.
Exactly. The guide makes it clear that those things can transform a purely physical act into something truly intimate and fulfilling.
And what's so powerful about this approach is that you can apply it to all forms of intimacy, not just the specific techniques outlined in the guide.
Exactly. You got it.
So even though we've been talking about this one specific type of intimate experience,
The principles are so much broader.
it all comes back to approaching intimacy with intention, with mindfulness, with a desire to truly connect.
No matter what form it takes.
It's incredible how this deep dive took us on such an unexpected journey.
I know, right?
We started with this guide on one specific technique, and we end up exploring the very essence of human connection.
It's amazing how that happens.
It just goes to show that there's always something new to learn, something new to discover, and something new to appreciate about intimacy.
The complexities of human intimacy never cease to amaze me.
Well said. So for our listeners out there, what's one key takeaway you'd like them to ponder as they continue their own journeys of exploration?
I'd say this. Always remember that intimacy thrives on mindfulness, communication, and a willingness to be vulnerable.
Vulnerability, yes.
Whether you're exploring new techniques or simply seeking to deepen your existing connection, always approach intimacy with curiosity, respect, and a genuine desire to connect with your partner on a soul level.
Beautifully put.
It's about more than just the physical, it's about a deeper connection.
I love that. You know, it's amazing how we started with a guide on a specific technique and ended up exploring these universal truths about intimacy and connection.
It is, isn't it? It really highlights how exploration and learning can take us down such fascinating paths.
It really does. And, I think one of the most valuable things this guide brought up was
What's that?
the importance of intentionality and intimacy.
Oh, I see what you mean.
It's not just going through the motions, it's about bringing awareness and presence to every moment.
Yeah, totally. Like treating intimacy as an art form,
Yeah.
carefully crafting an experience that's both pleasurable and deeply meaningful.
Exactly.
It's almost like learning a new dance.
Love you dance. Okay.
At first, you might feel clumsy just focusing on the steps, trying not to
Yeah,
trip.
right.
But as you practice, you get more comfortable, you move with more grace, and you can really lose yourself in the rhythm.
That's such a good analogy. And it applies not just to physical intimacy, but emotional intimacy too.
Oh, absolutely.
The more we practice being present, vulnerable, communicative, the more natural and effortless those connections become.
Exactly. And just like with any skill, the more you practice, the more confident you become. And that confidence,
Makes you a more attractive and desirable partner.
precisely.
Speaking of cycles, I remember the guide talked about post-intimacy reflection too.
They did. It's about taking time to really process the experience,
Okay.
both individually and as a couple.
So what does that look like?
Well, it's asking yourself questions like, what felt good? What could be even better next time?
I like that.
How can we keep learning and growing together?
It's like integrating that experience, letting it inform future encounters.
And deepen the connection over time.
I appreciate how the guide emphasizes feedback and communication.
It's so important.
And it's not just about giving feedback, it's about being open to receiving it, too.
Exactly.
Creating a space where both partners can comfortably express their needs and desires.
It's a collaborative process,
A shared journey of exploration and discovery.
Finding that sweet spot where everyone feels seen, heard, and truly satisfied.
And I think ultimately it's about recognizing that intimacy. It's a gift.
It is. It's a powerful force that connects us, that heals us, that inspires us.
That inspires us to be the best versions of ourselves.
Beautifully said.
So for our listeners who might be feeling inspired to explore these ideas further, what's one final thought you want to leave them with?
I'd say this. Never underestimate the power of intentionality, mindfulness, and genuine connection.
Those are the key ingredients.
Whether you're diving deep into new techniques or just seeking to enhance your existing intimacy, approach each encounter with curiosity, with playfulness, with a willingness to be fully present with your partner.
I love that.
And most importantly, remember that the journey of intimacy, it's a lifelong adventure.
It is, and the best discoveries often happen when we step outside our comfort zones.
When we embrace vulnerability and when we communicate openly and honestly with our partners.
So keep exploring, keep learning, and never stop celebrating the incredible gift of human intimacy.